Diontae Johnson coming over to the Panthers from Pittsburgh last season, where he had 51 receptions on 87 targets, 717 yards, and 5 touchdowns last season. Thoughts on Diontae Johnson?
I suspect Diontae Johnson will go back to his wide receiver two form, or at least fringe wide receiver two form. So I do think that there's some value here with Diontae Johnson. I feel like he's going to get peppered with a ton of targets in Carolina as they're trying to put these pieces around Bryce Young and allow him to take kind of this sophomore leap, if you will, after a really disappointing rookie season. So I Deontay Johnson's an interesting one for me because I'm not necessarily going after this guy at all. But if I'm in a PPR league, he does pose a good amount of interest because of the volume that I think he will see. I would not be shocked to see him with over 120 targets this year. But what I'm not sure of is what that actually relates to. Like I could see him with 120 targets for 87 grabs and 900 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like that doesn't seem completely far-fetched for me. Um, Maybe he gets a little bit higher on the touchdown board. If that's the case, yeah, then he keeps creeping up. If he's, a little bit lighter on the touchdowns like he was a couple seasons ago where he had 0, big shocker. But still nevertheless he had 0. He probably only creeps up to, a couple spots here to, wide receiver, 33. Plays more in that wide receiver 3 territory instead of up in that fringe wide receiver 2 territory.
Would not surprise me if we look up at the end of the season, we see him with closer to 140 targets when this thing's all said and done. Now, that's that for most wide receivers when you're talking 140 targets, like that's kind of that magical sweet spot when they start getting peppered with that many targets that you start talking about, being able to get into wide receiver, 2 territory, potentially even wide receiver 1 territory, when you're peppered with that many targets. That has not necessarily been the case for Diontae Johnson throughout his career, right? Like there's been several seasons we've seen him get to 140 targets and him finish even outside of wide receiver 2 territory. So this is one of those that I think that you are getting, you're definitely kind of drafting him a little bit more at a floor side of things here. There is some potential upside, but it is going to be kind of capped by how many touchdowns that come in there. So this is one of those that's I could see him. There's the potential to get all the way up into wide receiver 15 through 20, kind of in that range. But I think more than likely where he'll finish is going to be closer to a wide receiver 35. So some potential value baked in there.